Hello, I'm going to talk about some of the interesting things you can find in old books. Let me start by introducing you to this book here, which contains the Confessions of St. Augustine, together with some Latin poetry. Now, the first thing to notice about this book is its binding, which, as far as I can remember, is 19th century, but I'd have to double check that. I'm not an expert on bindings. In fact, if we open it up, we can tell that it's later than the date of the book, because it has this convenient little label, which doesn't look very 15th century. In fact, early books were often sold without bindings, so you can bind them yourself. Now, people who own books often leave traces of their ownership behind. This book, for instance, has 3 book plates. This one here is heraldic. No doubt research with the College of Arms could identify it. This one here, also heraldic, but conveniently has a person's name and address on. And finally, we have the book plate of the library, which now owns the book, the Taylor Institution in Oxford, with the shelf mark, which tells us where it's kept in the library. So, if we now move on from these end papers and open the book, we can see actually an old catalogue label from the bookseller. Yes, there are various blank pages here, but as we move in, we see somebody has written on one of the flyleaves the Confessions of St. Augustine, and what I think is the printer's name and the date. So someone would be doing a bit of research in the past. Turning over again, we can see this first leaf actually to have printing on. Down here we have what seems to be a leftover impression from where a woodcut or something might have been placed against it previously, unless it's just a watermark in the paper. I think it doesn't seem to be coming through on the other side, so it probably is something that's been placed against the book at some point. Here, this Latin text describes what's in the book. So 2 elegies of William Castellus, and also, well, it claims to contain some epigrams of Virgil, but these are not in the book, and so some reader in the past has actually crossed out that part of the inscription. If we now move on to the part of the book that actually contains St. Augustine's Confessions themselves, we can see here the famous opening sentence of the Confessions, Magnus es Domine et laudabilis valde, and so on and so forth. Great art thou, O Lord, and highly to be praised, as it's sometimes translated. Now, the print is quite interesting. It's a Gothic type, and it actually has many features which are quite similar to what you find in late medieval manuscripts. So we have the same sort of abbreviations, D, N with a bar over it, E for Domine, for instance. And also, after the printing process, somebody has come along and done what we call rubrication. That's marking things in red. So the starts of the sentences have been marked in that way, the starts of paragraphs here, and also this initial. And here, at the beginning of the text proper, we have this really beautiful illuminated M, which has been done by, well, unsurprisingly enough, an illuminator, with this lovely decoration off to the left. And so if I carefully replace that there. Now, interestingly enough, not all the initials have actually been added in. If we turn back into the previous work, which has some Latin poetry printed nice regular way, line by line, going back towards the beginning of it, we find some more initials put in by the rubricator here, but at the very beginning there isn't one. So that indicates that it was actually a separate process, the rubrication and illumination, done by a separate person who has actually missed out on a bit of the work here. This particular copy is actually remarkably clean, by which we mean free from annotations and such. Readers historically have often scribbled in books, and it's rather a pity, or at least I think it's quite a pity, that nobody's done very much of that here, because such marginalia could tell us quite a bit about what people thought of the text, what they wanted to highlight, and so on and so forth. However, somebody here, the owner of this, has evidently been taught never to write in books.